Story 1. May Christian. A 50-year-old New York businessman maintained a busy life. His 12-year-old kid has grown apart from him due to his hectic life. Charlie. Christian has battled as a single parent for the last 4 years to manage work and home commitments ever since the terrible death of his wife. But when a chance to take a well-earned holiday with Charlie presented itself, Christian jumped at it. They prepared their belongings and set off for Tiger Beach in the Bahamas. Tiger Beach, noted for its abundant marine life and crystal clear blue seas, was a haven for nature lovers. Swinging palm trees surrounded the beach's gorgeous shoreline, while below the water's surface, vibrant coral reefs are home to a wide variety of aquatic life. Additionally, there are so many things available for visitors to enjoy. The lack of work and the quality of their time together finally allowed Christian and Charlie to reunite among the serene beauty of Tiger Beach, bridging the emotional chasm that had developed when Diana, Christian's wife, sadly perished in a vehicle accident. The father and son made the decision to take a glass-bottom boat ride one day in order to see the ocean's beauties. He was engaged in his enthusiasm for marine life as the boat came to a leisurely stop in the enormous expanse and let the passengers to wonder at the aquatic animals passing under them. Charlie slipped Christian's notice. Christian was unaware that Charlie had stepped foot on the ship's deck, curiously captivated by the beauty of the endless water, oblivious to the danger that lay close. Charlie leaned dangerously near to the rails of the ship. The beautiful scene in front of him completely captivated his attention. In a heart-stopping turn of events, Charlie was taken from the protection of the boat by a large, broad shark that had just surfaced from the depths and was rushing upward with amazing velocity. One of the passengers then heard a piercing cry as they saw the awful event take place. The women's sobs reverberated around the deck, unsettling Christian. As he became aware of how serious the situation was, dread swept over him. Christian screamed for Charlie in a fit of terror, his screams reaching the ears of the dead silence, which was gripped by an overpowering wave of horror. Charlie, as the shark's menacing presence approaches. The predator gently encircled him as it moved with a gloomy beauty. The water's sparkling surface was cut by its fins. Charlie's spine tingled more intensely at the sight, his level of dread which was already elevated. Out of the blue, the shark shot at the little child with terrifying quickness. Its sharp fangs ruthlessly pierced his tender leg. As the predator's attack became more intense, crimson streams began to float from Charlie's wounds, turning the once clear water into an unsettling swirl of dark red. This heartbreaking sound resonated through the air, a frantic cry for help. Christian used every ounce of bravery to jump into the water and rescue his kid with a huge splash as a flood of strong love and protective instinct flowed through him. The threatening shark was drawn to him as he entered because of the surface disturbance. As it quickly drew closer to Christian, the predator's attention moved from Charlie to him in a terrifying instant that seemed to stop time. Christian's left hand was brutally taken by the shark's enormous teeth, and the agonizing pain that ensued filled his body. He had no idea what the agonizing agony would be like. His soft flesh and delicate skin were torn apart by the unrelenting attack as he lay there. The underbone, which is bare creamy white, every excruciating second left its mark on Christian's mind, testing his fortitude as he bravely battled the savage anguish overcome by instincts for survival. Christian's perseverance overshadowed the excruciating pain he was experiencing. He responded with a passion that was motivated by desperation, landing powerful punches on the shark's weak spots. His fists struck the creature's sensitive eyes, gills, and nose, hitting the most vulnerable parts of the animal. The ferocious predator, briefly startled by the sudden resistance, jerked back in agony and released its hold on Christian's broken arm. Seizing the opportunity, Christian securely gripped Charlie with his unharmed arm and drove them both toward the safety of the boat. The water's resistance was broken down by the repeated kicks. The crew quickly reacted and pulled Christian and Charlie back aboard the safety of the boat. As they examined the wounds, their expressions were deeply concerned. The terror of the incident was reflected in their emotions. Charlie's leg had horrifying, biting scars that were deeply twisted, a distressing memory of the shark's deadly attack. Christian's arm was bleeding badly at the time. The injuries, which show bone in several vulnerable places, offer a bleak picture of the severity of the assault. The local hospital was informed of the ship's impending arrival as it sped towards the beach. When Charlie arrived at the hospital, he endured a month-long recuperation and was only left with scars and wounds as a jarring memory of the terrifying incident. But Christian had to live with the excruciating fact that his arm had been amputated in order to save his life. Christian was deeply affected by losing his arm, yet he had no regrets. His willingness to make the sacrifice demonstrated his unfathomable love for his kid. Christian felt that any physical suffering was overcome by their survival and the rekindled relationship between father and son. Story 2. In Townsville, Australia, Ray Boundy, a venture-prawn trawler boat skipper, was 27 years old. Dennis Murphy, a 23-year-old deckhand, and Linda Horton, his girlfriend and the ship's chef, are part of his crew. They set off on a fishing excursion with the intention of staying in the area's seas between Townsville and the Great Barrier Reef for a few weeks. When they ran into a violent storm, their voyage took a tragic turn. They battled against enormous waves pounding into their boat, which caused it to fill with water, despite the ferocious winds and severe seas. Dennis was fighting the weather on the deck while Ree and Linda were confined inside the wheelhouse and battling to keep the boat afloat. Moments before the boat overturned and imprisoned him, Dennis saw a huge wave coming and leaped out without thinking. Ray and Linda gathered their bravery and power behind the walls of the wheelhouse as they clung to a little pocket of air. They came up with an escape strategy and used all their courage to swim through the wheelhouse door and plunge down. They were all three collected in the water when they surfaced, eyes scouring their surroundings when they saw Dennis not far away. It was soon evident that they were far from shore, struggling to stay afloat in the wide expanse of the open sea close to their crashed boat. Ray gave Linda and Dennis an idea of how far they were from Townsville and the closest group of islands based on his local expertise. It was a somber understanding that their greatest hope of life lay in swimming to the Great Barrier Reef. With persistence and ingenuity, they recovered materials from the wreckage and put together a makeshift life raft before setting sail into the Coral Sea. In search of the distant reef, they paddled. Dehydration, heat, and a persistent dread of shark encounters put their bodies to the test. A trio suddenly felt apprehensive as night dropped, throwing shadows on the lake. They looked toward the horizon and saw a terrifying sight, a gigantic fin breaching the water's surface, a sure indicator of a shark's arrival. Ray made an effort to allay their worries by telling them that shark attacks were uncommon, and so, rather of acting aggressively, the shark was probably just curious. Yet with each stroke, their anxiety increased. Ray's heart skipped a beat as they continued to paddle because he felt the huge shark respond quickly as it slid under him. He turned and kicked the shark as it bit into his knee with great force. The three anticipated that the shark's hunger and instinct would likely cause it to return after its brief absence. They were drawn by the smell of blood in the water, but terror kept them from moving further since they constantly feared running into another shark in the depths below. Their darkest worries came true in an instant. A tiger shark charged Dennis after resurfacing with a huge dorsal fin. Dennis battled Ray and Linda's hopeless predator's strength, despite his heroic kicks. Ray and Linda were kept safe from the shark while they watched as Dennis was hauled underneath, his battle for life extinguished. Dennis had made the ultimate sacrifice for them. The remembrance of their slain teammates serves as fire for their grieving hearts as they go on and reach the reef. Yet still, the threat continued. The shark started to circle them as another big pen breached the surface, circling them in a foreboding manner and threatening to devour them all. As they continued, their resolve waned and their optimism vanished, and tragedy struck once again. The strain was apparent. Linda's agonizing cries filled the air, breaking Ray's heart as the shark grabbed her and sank its fangs into her arms and chest. Unableness swept over him. It was a terrible reminder that he couldn't rescue his sweetheart. The shark frantically shook his head. Ray became more desperate as he chased Linda through the river, driven by the need to protect himself and the agonizing knowledge of his helplessness. With all of his last power, Ray swam. Every second that passed saw the shark follow mercilessly, getting closer and closer and closer. Then, almost as if by divine direction, Ray saw a ray of hope as a massive wave charged at him, grabbing the chance. With his last remaining energy, Ray managed to catch the wave while riding its strong current. It gave him the speed he needed to escape the jaws of the following predator, propelling him in the direction of the safety of the reef. Frightened and worn out, as Ray entered the embrace of the reef, he felt a mixture of relief and grief as he remembered the sacrifices and haunting images in his head. Despite being physically saved, Ray was rescued by an Australian Air Force chopper on a Tuesday morning when it spotted him on the reef. Ray was aware that the psychological trauma had left him with lasting wounds, a never-ending reminder of the deadly shark attack that drastically altered his life. Story 3. Chris and Omar were good friends who loved the thrill of scuba diving. They enthusiastically prepared for a day of excitement and exploration. Experienced divers around the Santa Cruz, California coast were aware of the perils and attraction of the enormous ocean. They were headed towards the stunning Pigeon Point, a lighthouse positioned atop a high cliff with a panoramic view of the central California coast. This lighthouse was not just a beacon for sailors to follow, but also a sign of hope for weary travelers. The area of water next to the lighthouse is a protected area known as the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary, which is home to an abundant variety of marine life. The sanctuary's depths were home to a wide variety of intriguing animals, from colorful tropical fish to imposing marine mammals like seals, sea otters, and dolphins. But these seas were also the big broad sharks' hunting territory, and the apex predator dominated them with uncompromising might. It was the perfect environment for these terrifying animals due to the mild temperatures and large number of marine mammals there. Omar and Chris donned stylish black wetsuits on that fateful morning in September 1984 in order to investigate the mystery lurking under the surface of the water close to Pigeon Point. Their enthusiasm remained unabated despite the cloudy weather and poor visibility. They had previously ventured these depths, sure of their skills at navigating the underwater environment. They were blissfully unconscious of the impending danger beneath them as they made their way through rocky fissures and swinging strands of seagrass as they dove into the dark depths. A great white shark bit slowly. It takes time for the ideal opportunity to arise. The calm of the river was broken abruptly and without warning. Omar was attacked by the great white shark, a fearsome creature with unmatched aggression. Its jaws, which were packed with razor-sharp teeth, clamped down on his torso with unrelenting power, brutally lifting him into the air. Chris watched the horrible event play out before his eyes helplessly, frozen to the place with his heart thumping. Omar, who was now helpless, was ripped from the protection of the surface and submerged under the roiling waves. The area surrounding them changed into a fiery crimson cauldron, reflecting the predator's ferocious ferocity. Chris mustered his bravery and went back into the perilous depths where his companion had gone, feeling a powerful mixture of dread and resolve rushing through his veins. His surroundings became a murky abyss as the water engulfed him, obscuring his eyesight and distorting the once familiar undersea environment. His lungs screamed out for precious breath, and every stroke turned into a futile struggle against the current's resistance. His mind struggled to make sense of the confusion as it oscillated between terror and unyielding resolution. Omar's injuries were shown to be really horrifying as Chris plunged further into the pitch blackness. On Omar's body, the shark attack's vicious path of destruction was indelible. The predator's jaw's unyielding force was evident in the horrifying lacerations and ripped flesh on his hands, fingers, wrists, posterior thighs, and buttocks. Wide, gaping, deep, ragged wounds, releasing a flood of red that mixed with the ocean around it. The grisly scene did not discourage them. Chris grabbed hold of Omar's bruised figure with shaking palms as he extended his hand. His muscles ached from carrying his severely wounded companion as he struggled against the obstinate currents. Omar lay still in him, bathed in blood and ripped flesh, while he struggled to get him back to the boat to safety. With each passing second, his life was ebbing away. Tragically, Omar's injuries were rather severe. The shark's relentless attack had caused irreparable harm, which led to exoexplanation, the draining of his life bores by several vicious bites. Omar's waning energy stood in sharp contrast to the once vibrant hues of the ocean, a chilling reminder of the shark attack's brutal and basic nature. Omar's unexpected death shocked the neighborhood as word of it spread like wildfire. Quickly issuing warnings, the Coast Guard and local officials advised swimmers, surfers, and divers to avoid the perilous waters. Marine scientists and shark specialists launched extensive research close to Pigeon Point in an effort to comprehend why there had been such a devastating loss and why shark activity had suddenly increased. It quickly became clear that Omar's meeting was not the only one to occur in the space of only 15 days. The U.S. Pacific coast has been traumatized by 4 shark attacks. These horrible things happened, and they transformed the neighborhood and the world, now painfully aware of the hidden threat underneath the placid surface of the water.